All right, I'll call this meeting of the Social Service Grant Committee together. Let's start out by introductions. My name's Neil Dobler. I represent District 7. To my right.
Councilwoman Ortiz, I represent District 3.
And online with us, we have the third member of the committee.
Councilman Brett Kell, 5th District.
Looking sharp today, Mr. Kell.
Doing the baseball tour.
All right. First order of business is the approval of the June 24th, 2024 minutes. I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second? Yep. All right. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. Next item of business is to hear the appeals. And for that, I'm going to turn things over just to explain the process and where we're headed from here to Brett with United Way.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Committee members, staff, thanks for the opportunity today. So what we have before us is 3 applicants who wish to appeal their scores on their social service grant applications. So per the RFP, once those award announcements are sent, those award announcements are sent to the applicants, and the wording in those award announcements says that they are contingent on appeals, but also on approval, ultimately, of council. In this process, the applicants are given 7 days to notify in writing the vendor, that is United Way of Caw Valley, that they wish to appeal. And so we have 3 organizations who wish to appeal today: Community Action, Inc., East Topeka Senior Center, and Shawnee County Medical Society Health Access. So those are the 3 that we have. They will offer appeals based on information that they bring. I will remind the committee that according to the instructions given within the RFP and within the larger process, the contents of the application itself must be the basis for appeal. So any extraneous information that is submitted per the instructions within the RFP should not be considered for the appeal. That said, with Shawnee County Medical Society Health Access, we can certainly give Megan Skaggs, their director, an opportunity to share today, but that is, as you saw in the email that went out, that is the one appeal that we looked at initially and said that we agree with in terms of past grant administration, moving that score from a 3 to a 5 based on the correspondence that you see within the packet there, that there was a communication piece between the vendor and the applicant that we, in our review and in their review, found that that indicated that the report was in fact not late, so that the score should be 5 out of 5 for past grant administration. I don't know, Megan, do you want to speak to that any more today?
No, I apologize. I'm also at the ball fields with one of my daughters playing softball. But I mean, I don't know if there's anything else to add other than I think it was just one of those things that was overseen as far as a typo that needed to be fixed. And it reflected as the report was late, even though it was not submitted late. I don't know if there's anything else you need from me on that.
Very good. Thank you, Megan. So with that said, we can proceed a couple of different ways. We can do these individually, which I think is probably best. to go through with this. So we can start with Shawnee County Medical Society Health Access. The appeal was on the 3 out of 5 score on past grant administration. You've heard from Megan and you've heard from us that we believe that score should be amended to a 5 out of 5 on past grant administration. So, yes, Councilman Ortiz.
Question?
I don't have a question. I'd just like to make a motion to go ahead and approve that amendment.
All right, before I entertain a second, what does that do to the overall amount?
Thank you. So what we have prepared in advance is we prepared an additional spreadsheet that has the score amended and then shows you the adjustment in allocation. You will see this applicant on this sheet is applicant number 10, so line 10. You see the adjustment is made there in the score for the addition of 2%, and we have multiplied that by the amount requested, and you see the new grant amount award. What that does is that increases the grant award by $1,000, and then that means that number 23 would receive $1,000 less,
Okay.
but it changes no other scores.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. That's clear. I do have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second, and this will be to approve the adjustment to Shawnee County Medical Society Health Access for a total amount of $47,500. With that said, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, that motion passes. So let's move on to the next one.
Okay, so we'll just move in alphabetical order at this point. So Community Action, Inc. will be the next appeal, and we'll invite staff from Community Action, Inc. to present. You can come here to the mic.
Okay.
182 out of 85.
Hello, I'm Sarah Russ Martin, and I'm the Family Community Outcomes Director at Community Action. I did not write this grant, but it is directly administered through my department. And so when I saw the score sheet, I felt like there needed to be some clarification in terms of what was in. If any of it is outside the scope, then I understand it can't be considered, but I'd at least like it to be sort of on the record that this is, that what was submitted was not, this is not different than what was submitted, it's just sort of expansive under the outcomes information. So it looks at the way the comment from the reviewer was that the outcomes seem vague and don't seem realistic. And what's the process for ensuring that clients keep utilities and make sure that it doesn't happen? And so it felt like it must have been stated in a way in which our outcome plan was not clearly defined. But we do have an outcome plan where we follow up with clients at 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, and 180 days to assess whether the services that were provided to them were indeed helpful to improving their overall financial situation. And also that when folks come in to seek services, they're not just filling out an application and then getting some sort of financial assistance, but there's a process in place in which they are meeting with someone, they are getting financial tools and information, they're getting budgeting help, they're getting referrals if there's some underemployment or unemployment, for instance, that type of thing. So there's a lot of resources that are going into somebody if they are approved. It's not just sort of we're going to pay this for you and so we'll see you down the road. But there's an investment in trying to make sure that they're in a situation that is better moving forward than it was when they came in the door. And that's not just in terms of the financial piece that they're there seeking services for. So those outcomes are the same, but there's an expanded explanation of what those performance measures are and the information that we are doing across the board for all of our grants and trying to assess whether the services we're providing are meeting our intended outcomes, and if they are not, why they are not, and how we need to change those services to make them more responsive to the actual needs and to the growth of the people who are coming to see us. The next piece that I wanted to speak to is on page 3 in my written appeal, and that is the process for client input. And again, it's the same piece, that post-service intervals of 30, 60, 90 days, and 180 days, as well as at the end of the service provision, there is client feedback that is gathered and where we assess whether the services have helped to move the family forward, and also whether there are additional services that are needed, not necessarily financial payments, but are there additional one-on-one interactions where we can sit down and walk through the curriculum that we use, which is from the Allstate Foundation, and different pieces that we can do where we can do some financial empowerment with folks. And we also take those, I read every one of them, and we meet as a group to decide whether what we're doing is moving us toward the outcomes that we're seeking, not just by the numbers, but also by the feedback, so that we can make those changes to the services as needed. Under D on page 4 is the org leadership. This one was just a mistake in terms of, I don't know how we got 0 out of 5. I think it's because I'm not really sure, but we have a situation where the gender component, the one that is less than 70% of board membership, identify as one gender. That is accurate. We do not meet that. 70% of our board, right about that, is the same gender. However, all other 3 are met, and were met at the time of the application. We have 53% of our board members identify as racial or ethnic minority leaders. Board meetings and attendance rate is at 78%, but the requirement requires the board meets due to having quorum, and our board is quite large, being a community action program. We have a tripartite board where, sorry, somebody's trying to interrupt my thoughts. A tripartite board that requires a lot of different, sounds like you all shaking your heads, you're familiar with it, so I won't explain the whole process, but it means that we have a very large board. So a 78% for a board of 10 looks really different than a board of 18. But we've met quorum for the last several years in all of our meetings, and so there's not been an issue with that at all. And then also that our board has a vast array and a healthy mix of the needed skills and resources that they need to effectively lead the organization. So those 3 are in place, which is why we are appealing that. And then collaboration and partnerships. So the issue is that what was included was the partnerships that were determined to be essential to carrying out the grant by the person who was responsible for putting this in. And that that is the utility. I mean, we don't just rely on the utility companies and sort of call the number that everybody calls and sort of rely on anybody we get. We have developed, cultivated relationships with the folks that we work with at the utility companies. And when we call, they do give us a lot of influence in terms of setting maybe extended dates of disconnect, doing some different things. We try to be very creative so that even if we can't pay to help the person, we can at least get them in a better situation to be able to manage it on their own. But obviously we have a vast array of partners in the community that are not necessarily directly necessary to fulfilling what we've said we're going to fulfill with this grant. And so that is the partners list, that some of which is included. And I think that is all of the points that I addressed in my appeal.
All right, thank you very much. First, I'll ask any questions on the committee.
I do have.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So part of your grants is for, or this grant is for paying utilities, is that correct?
Correct.
So do you look at, is there, on your partners, do you ask to make sure like leave is in play? Do you
Yes.
sign them up for leave? Or
Yes,
the different entities, is that correct?
that is correct.
So I'm just making sure you just don't take that money and just give it to them, that
Oh,
you're.
no.
That you're signing them up with other agencies before you use your own money. That's-
Absolutely. And folks can't get regular assistance, meaning coming in every month to get assistance. There's once every 12-year rule, or 12-year, that would be excessive.
Ah, that would be.
No, that's not it. It's 12 months.
12 months?
Yes, so once a year, if somebody needs assistance. We also would assess sustainability. So it's unlikely that we are going to be able to help somebody who has zero income, zero way to meet any of their financial obligations at all. And that is just because to be good users of this money, we paying for it now and, helping to make things better in July, when there's no plan in place for the family to be able to make it in August, is not either a good use of the money, and it's not actually helping the family. So if we can't help them because they're not sustainable, then that's the first place that we go to, is looking at sustainability. So how can you remedy this? What can we do, connect you with, set you up, refer you to, get you enrolled in, whatever the case may be, depending on the particular circumstances, to help you to be able to manage this going forward.
Okay, I don't know, my next question might be for Brett. If not, just tell me it's not for me. I've been told that before. So I seen on this that one of the outcomes is that this doesn't happen again. And I thought I had it marked. But, Brett, we're in a crazy state of mind right now with people and just with really hard times and stuff like that. So how can they show that if they can only get it once a year, how can they show that that's not going to happen again? And that's my question, because I tell you what, since COVID, I've turned into a social worker. Trust me, I know every little entity that's giving out stuff. So I guess I'm kind of questioning, is that just across the board that you say that, or is there different criteria for companies that are giving out, utility money or benefits like that? How did we get that?
So, yeah, thank you, Councilwoman, for the question. We don't have any influence within the process related to the substance of outcomes. Programs that apply are able to choose their own outcomes, and then they choose their their targets, and then they report on those. That's a conversation that we've had internally about the quality of outcomes and performance measures, but and that's actually a conversation that this committee has had in prior years and in prior iterations, but we've not come to any meaningful interventions. What is stated here in Community Action Inc.'s outcomes is not unlike many others across the community. The hope is that you are able to provide emergency services and then to provide sustainability steps for folks in order to avoid future use. That said, many programs will be able to tell you about folks who they see regularly on a 12-month cycle.
Right, right. I'm looking at a 93-year-old who gets SSDI, who applies for LEAP, who can't apply for anything because they've applied for LEAP. You know, when I look at all of, well, let's have them go to an agency, that money's gone by 3 days. It's gone. So, okay, so that's gone. So she can't use that. Evergy has come up with something this summer that they've started, to give help, but you can't receive that help if you've applied for LEAP. So again, that's counting them out. So again, she's going to get further and further behind if she comes here, and then she's got to report what other agencies have helped her. So that might count her out. So that was just why I was asking, just to get that clear vision, because at the end of the day, she still hasn't received help because she's applied here and here.
Yeah.
And when I tell people, because gas is higher than electric, I say, put all your money on gas, and so that was just a question, not to
thank you.
beat you up on it, but it's just, it's real, and they're out there. She can't go back to work, she's just got that one, so.
Well, and one of the things we say is that our if you can imagine a stream and the source of a stream and upstream and downstream, many of our interventions are downstream, and they are distant from root causes, and we are all operating in a very broken system right now for folks and doing the best we can, but we do recognize that oftentimes when they come through our doors, there are circumstances that are simply out of not only our control, but certainly out of theirs as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Kell, any questions?
No, sir.
Thank you. Brett, I wonder if we could just go through the items that they are appealing and talk about those one at a time. It seems like some of this information is, a part of the appeal is additional information that wasn't present on the initial application. I'm not sure we can do a lot about that. But if you could speak to each of those, I would appreciate it. So let's start with the outcomes are clear and related, where they were awarded 8 out of 10 points.
Yes, in our review of the appeal, we see the revisions in the outcome statements and performance measures. And while that additional information certainly does strengthen the outcomes because it was not included in the application, for us it's extraneous material and would not be considered in the basis for the appeal.
All right. Next item's the next item, plan has been identified to measure outputs and outcomes. 3 out of 5 points were awarded.
Yeah, again, the additional information in terms of the intervals here, and not only the quantity, but also the qualitative information that is provided here, again, strengthens it, but because it was extra information outside of the application, we saw for this one that it would not be considered in the basis for the appeal.
All right, and let's see, if I'm not mistaken, the next one is Agency has formal process and is using client input.
This one is similar to the prior one in terms of the plan to measure outputs and outcomes. Again, additional quantitative and qualitative information outside the application certainly does strengthen it, but would not be considered in terms of the appeal.
All right, the next one is organizational leadership, 0 out of 5 points.
So in our 5 years of doing this work, we have not come across this issue. We do recognize that between the application and between the rubric, there's ambiguity in language. So in the application asks for the average percentage of board members who attend meetings. So it's average attendance is what is asked in the application. However, the language in the rubric is a little more nuanced and a little more unclear if you're comparing it to the application. So it's got language about quorum and about the percentage or ratio of time in which the board meets and has a quorum. That said, because the application asks for average attendance, the reviewers over the years, and we looked back at the comments of other applications as well, the reviewers, when they are reviewing this as average attendance because that's the information they have in front of them. So when they look at the 80%, they're not considering quorum there necessarily because the application asks for average attendance. So if that falls below 80%, and in this case it was 78%, then they say that it didn't meet it. That said, we certainly recognize in this that there is some ambiguity between the two and probably needs to be a conversation with city staff in the next RFP to clean up the language either in the application or in the rubric to ensure that they correspond in a way that's more one-to-one. But in our estimation and in our review of other applications and in other comments, the reviewers, when they went through the process, were looking at average board attendance and not at quorum, even though that's the language in the rubric. All they had was the language in the application, so that's what they were going off of.
Okay. So the applicants they don't see the rubric until they get this sheet back, is that correct?
The rubric is included in the RFP
Okay.
as a guide.
So there is a possibility they could read it as quorum and not average attendance. Did that come up with any of the other applications on this go around?
And in our 5 years, it's not come up either, but we certainly do recognize it as ambiguity and needs to certainly be a process improvement and a conversation with city staff and likely with this committee to determine what exactly you want. Do you want a board that meets and has quorum 80% of the time, or do you want 80% average board attendance? Again, probably not something to be decided today, but
Right. Let me ask this question. If we were to give them benefit of the doubt on this one, would that change the score?
yes. So that would mean that they would hit 3 of the 4 criteria. Currently, they hit 2 of the 4, and so that would be a 0 out of 5 score. However, if you were to change the score from a 0 to a 3, then that would change the award amount, and we have anticipated that today and provided you with an adjustment for that. And so you see what that does is that this one would be for number 14. So you see the score moving up 3 points to an 85. The amount is then multiplied by the amount requested, and you see the amount awarded. And then what that does is the addition of those dollars there is then subtracted from number 23.
Right. Okay, let's leave that one where it's at for right now and cover the final two, if we could. I believe the next one is past grant administration is effective, and that was a 3 out of 5.
And they did not.
They did not appeal that one.
No, the last one
Last-
that they did
sorry.
appeal was collaboration and partnerships.
Yes.
And again, they did list 3, and the minimum was 6 for those points, and they needed to be meaningful. And the reviewers in their review felt like there were 3, and they weren't especially meaningful outside of sort of basic information. Again, there's an extensive list that is included here
In the appeal,
in the appeal.
right.
Correct, but not included in the application.
All right. So that covers all of the items that were referenced in the appeal. Is there any discussion or motions?
Can we review the next one? I want to think about this for a minute.
Okay.
Unless you're ready to vote, go ahead, but I just kind of want to, I don't know, ask Cal, but,
I would I would like to take these one at a time, just so we don't
right.
influence
Right.
one over the other.
No, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying, so, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
So my understanding, Brett, is, oh, go ahead. Brett wanted to talk.
Mr. Kell? No, I don't think so. I
Okay.
think you're good.
My understanding is they didn't give you a list of their partners. They only, a full list of however many you were asking for, right?
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
But they did in the appeal? Okay.
Correct.
And then the other thing was, we need to recognize whether it's the average attendance or a quorum. We need to, or whether we're going to put both of that on the application, right? And that's,
Correct.
okay.
Correct. So the 3 collaborations that were listed were Evergy, of course, electric, Kansas Gas, of course, for gas, and City of Topeka, water. And obviously, for someone doing utility assistance, it would make sense that they would have those partnerships.
Absolutely.
And so that's why the reviewers felt like, while they hit 3, they didn't hit 6, but they also didn't feel like these were especially meaningful. They felt like these were sort of standard, and they were looking for more.
Okay. And I recognize, and I hear what you said, that when you weren't the one that filled this application out, and we just got to remember, like anything else, when we fill those out, we have to fill them out completely, and whoever's doing it. We had somebody last year that didn't give us a follow-through email, that couldn't get a hold of us, so it's just very, very important. But I thank you for coming and bringing this to our attention. I would like to, I don't have any more questions for her. I don't know if you do. I would like to make a motion that we put in there the average attendance and/or quorum, doesn't meet quorum. I would like to see both of those in there so that we know that if we can. I don't know if it's a HUD thing or whatever, but I think that would be important to the application. And I say that because so that you guys, when you're scoring it, you will understand if they're meeting quorum and if it's the average, because it could be a small number. And so that you guys get a good understanding of that. Like for us in the council, our quorum is 6, right? So, out of 10 or 9 of us. So that you guys will get a clear understanding, and they will get a clear understanding of that as well.
So let me just, your motion is for future reference to only identify
To identify both.
and make that at least 80% of the time.
I think that's a good number. Brett, is that good for, do you think that's a good number? Or would you like, do you have any thoughts on that?
I wonder if this is something that maybe we discuss just a little bit.
Yeah, probably
next
some more
meeting.
conversation,
Yeah.
and maybe some conversation with the programs as well, to have a sense of where they are with board attendance, and not necessarily set something that's unrealistic based on the current experience in our community, while at the same time ensuring that they have a board that's attending meetings regularly, that they have quorum so they can make decisions, so that they are fulfilling their fiduciary responsibilities to the organization, so.
Yeah, I think just making it crystal clear for the applicants will be the goal. I would, in this case, I think it probably wasn't clear for this applicant. So I would make a motion that we award them 3 out of the 5 points, and I think that's reflected on the sheet that was passed out. I know that takes away from the bottom line for number 23. I think that's it. I think ultimately, depending on what we do with the next applicant, that's going to be a couple $1,000 or something. It's not going to be huge. I think what I would suggest when we get to the end of this is when we go back to the council, we ask for an additional amount to fund the last applicant based on what they saw when these awards went out. And I think we can easily take that out of our uncommitted reserves if that passes this body. So I guess just to start with, for organizational leadership, where 0 out of 5 points was awarded, I would make a motion to change that to 3 out of 5 points.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Would you take a friendly amendment to that?
sure.
Maybe 4 out of 5? Because they didn't list all of the, they didn't understand, I get that,
Right.
the average. But then the other ones, they only listed 3 and they were
That-
supposed to list.
Yeah, that's a different one, though. I think I'm only talking about the one where the
Is that
organization.
right?
Right, we're talking about the
Yeah.
attendance one right now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're just
that's the
talking
only
about-
one, that's
Oh,
the only
okay.
one I would do.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
that's fine. So 3 out of 5 on the attendance, and yeah, we'll leave the last one, collaboration and partnerships, at 0. So,
Okay.
okay. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion passes. All right, we will move on to the next one.
Excellent. East Topeka Senior Center. So Deb, if you want to come forward.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to present an appeal of our scoring. No new information will be submitted. We just wanted to bring clarity to what was submitted. Based on the comments on the capacity, organization has the resource to produce the proposed outcomes efficiently and effectively. We received a 5 out of 10, and the comment was regarding our revenue. This is, I feel, was misread because our financial statements do reflect a large revenue over expenses because we were awarded funds by KDOT and ARPA to purchase new vehicles. And those vehicles were purchased the end of '23 and the beginning of '24. So the monies appear on the financial statements, but on the balance sheet, it would be noted that our bank account does not reflect that amount because they are listed as assets. The vehicles would not appear as expenses on a regular financial statement because they are reflected on the balance sheet as assets. And so, to me, it's obvious that we have been efficient and effective if we were able to receive those type of funds to purchase the vehicles. So that is basically what and as far as putting that in the budget narrative, I didn't think to do that because it did not affect our 2025 request. Those were monies that were received and expended in 2024, and so they would not be reflected in our 2025 budget, and so they were not reflected on the budget or in the narrative.
All right, questions?
I'm sorry. Brett, on the application, does that, is that explained to them that they should do that or at any time?
Yeah, thank you, Councilwoman. So on the application, just following
There we
the, just following the budget, there's a budget narrative section, and that question says, please explain any substantial increase or decrease in your budget. And so when the reviewers were having this conversation, they saw the difference between the 2024 proposed and the 2025 projected, and saw a difference of roughly 130,000, 127,000 and change. And the explanation given in the application was the increases to add additional hours and pay for drivers. That to them did not explain the 127,000 and change. And so as a result, they gave a score of 5 on the capacity, and then a score of 3 out of 5 on the second one. So a total loss of 7 points between the two because they didn't feel like they had sufficient information to explain the difference between the 2024 proposed and the 2025 projected.
And I guess my understanding of the justification would be if we were increasing the budget over the previous year. And so I wasn't thinking in terms of explaining why we did what we did in 2024. So, I chalk it up to interpretation.
I guess, Brett, I would ask if on United Way's side of things, any justification for a change in this score?
In the conversation we had when we looked over the comments from the reviewers, and we looked at what was included in the application, we didn't see basis at this time, just based on what was here, given that there was a question that would ask for an increase or decrease. Recognizing now, obviously, with the information from the appeal, that certainly makes sense. But in the question and the budget narrative following, there was an opportunity to explain that decrease, and the reviewers felt like what was included there was not sufficient for them to make a decision for a 10 or a 5 on those two capacity questions.
Okay, any questions?
I do. So then on the applications, do you guys ask for any or and all grants? How do you figure out if any of them, is that in there? And if so, what page?
Yeah, so there is an extensive budget, program budget that's outlined. And so throughout that budget, they are able to put a number of revenue streams within there in order to be able to account for the resources that they have. And then obviously under expenditures, they are able to provide detail in terms of what dollars are then going out of the program. So there's opportunity to do that, but then the accompanying budget narrative question is there for applicants to provide additional information that may not be clear from the itemized budget that's provided there. In addition, for them to provide the opportunity to explain any substantial increase or decrease from a year-over-year budget.
Because she's got revenue, ARPA, 2023, 2024 proposed, 23,235 under revenue. But that shouldn't really be under revenue, should it?
If those are dollars, if those are ARPA dollars that came in during that year, then those would certainly be.
Under there?
Those would certainly be included there. Again, there weren't issues with the budget itself in terms of those pieces. It had more to do with when they looked at the total agency budget from the 2024 proposed and the 2025 projected on page 16 of the application. And then they looked at the budget narrative question. They could not account for the $127,000 difference. And when you're a reviewer, you only have what you have in front of you. And so as they're trying to best allocate city resources, they're trying to find the best possible investment, and when they have a difference like that, they're looking in the budget to try, and in particular, they're looking to the budget narrative, which is why we have the question in there for the increase or decrease, so that we can.
It was really my error, because I interpreted it incorrectly. I was interpreting as far as for 2025 and not thinking about, I needed to explain why we had such an excess in the budget narrative. It was said that we were approved to buy additional vehicles, and I thought it was reflected on the balance sheet that the vehicles were indeed purchased, since they were reflected there as assets, but I didn't think of, and so I have to chalk it up to my not thinking that way. But I thought it was worth it to come and make the appeal to at least explain why we looked like we had a lot of money, but we don't.
All right, we appreciate you being here today. Any other questions, any motions? Councilman Kell, any questions?
Did Kel leave us?
No, I'm good, thank you.
All right. I have no further questions or motions.
I thank you, Deborah, for, if I may.
You bet.
Mr. Chair.
You bet.
I thank you for saying that. These are tough for us, because we want to give you guys money to everybody. So it's really tough. But again, I will ask this question, and I've asked it before. Do we go over the process with them, and we make sure that they understand that this is what we're looking for, and this is what you might have done wrong last year, or do you have any, we're doing all that. I just want to make sure, to give everybody a fair shot. So, okay, that's just something I want to make sure we're doing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So I think at this time, what we have before us is scoring and funding recommendations on the spreadsheet titled "With Adjustment for Health Access and Community Action." Is that correct? Could you tell me what the difference for applicant number 23, what the difference is between this total and the original?
$1,800.
All right.
So it would be because the adjustment for number 10 was 1,000, and the adjustment for number 14 was 800.
40, okay.
It deducted essentially $1,800 off of number 23.
All right. Any questions or motions from the committee?
I don't, did I have the right one?
We just have,
This is
we
the
didn't
original.
make another copy, I'm
I was
sorry.
gonna say, I
Didn't have
I
the
was doing
original
good,
one.
then you fell out on me.
Sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve that with those amendments.
Okay. Friendly amendment to add $1,800 to
Oh, yeah. I'm
applicant
sorry.
23. I think that's what you meant. So the motion would be to approve the spreadsheet as presented entitled with adjustment for health access and community action, plus $1,800 for applicant 23, which the council will have to approve additional funding.
So I'll have to wait to send them that. That's the actual. That was 1645.
Yeah, the exact difference is 1810.
1810, let's do that.
Thank you. Yeah,
So we'd have to wait to send until we hear that they approved it.
Right, that would have to go through the council. So I'll second that motion. Mr. Kell, any questions?
No, I'm good, thank you.
All right. So let's vote on that motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, motion passes. And I believe that's all we need to cover today. Is that correct? That's correct. All right. So this item will go to the council probably in, I don't know, the end of July, 1st of August. Once again, we appreciate, did you have a comment?
Will it go to the Policy and Finance Committee first, or does it go straight to council?
I thought it goes straight to the council.
I think it goes straight to council.
You
Yeah.
can double check, but I think it goes straight to the council.
Yeah, pretty sure. I don't know if Liz knows, but straight to council. Great, thank you. All right, once again, we appreciate all the hard work that United Way does. It doesn't make it simple for us, but it makes it a lot more straightforward. And I know it's a difficult job for them and for us as well. With that, any other items to come before the committee? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.